In the early morning hours of June 10, 1965, Viet Cong sappers breached the defences of the Dong Xoai Special Forces camp. Of the Green Berets and Navy Seabees inside, 5 would be killed and most of the survivors would be wounded. This is the story of the 2 Medals of Honour of Dong Xoai. This channel's mission is to challenge the Vietnam orthodoxy. Much of what you know about the Vietnam War is either incomplete or false. To support this channel and its mission, please subscribe and like the video. After the battle at Binh Gia in January 1965, the Communist main force regiments withdrew to War Zone D. Binh Long and Phuc Long provinces were selected for the next campaign. The objective was the destruction of US and ARVN forces, elimination of strategic hamlets, and the linking of Communist bases in the area to those in the southern Central Highlands. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th regiments, 2 infantry battalions, and the 80th Artillery Detachment would take part in the campaign. On May 25th, 11 Green Berets of Detachment A342, 5th Special Forces Group, a South Vietnamese Special Forces A Detachment, and 2 CIDG companies landed at Dong Xoai. A 3rd CIDG company arrived on May 30th, raising CIDG strength to approximately 400 men. District forces included 1 RF company, an armoured car platoon with 6 cars, and 2 105mm howitzers. A 9-man advance party from CB Team 1104, Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 11, arrived in Dong Xoai on June 4th. The Seabees had been ordered to reinforce the fortifications at Dong Xoai after completing a Special Forces camp at Ben Soi. Mortar registration fire was received in the district headquarters and CIDG compounds between May 25th and June 5th, and an estimated 2,000 Viet Cong were spotted 5 to 10 kilometres to the north and east. Camp development continued, while combat operations were limited to observation and listening posts and ambush patrols within 1 to 2 kilometres of the camp. On June 7th, several of the outposts were probed, and 1 mortar round landed in the district compound. At 6 PM on June 9th, 100 VC were reported 4 kilometres to the south. The howitzers fired into the area, and a few harassment and interdiction mortar rounds were fired until 11:30 PM. The outposts reported no enemy movement, but the VC had infiltrated within 100 metres to the north and west of the defensive positions. At 11:45, 60 and 81mm mortar fire began to fall on the CIDG camp and the district headquarters. Intense mortar fire continued for about 45 minutes. The 1st and 4th VC regiments also moved into ambush positions north and west of Dong Xoai. In the CIDG compound, the US Special Forces radio operator reported the attack to the radio relay at Nui Ba Zen, but the next few mortar rounds destroyed the communication shack and cut the phone lines to the district headquarters. Wounded in both legs by a mortar burst, Detachment Commander Captain Stokes was carried to the district headquarters by Special Forces Medic Sergeant First Class James T. Taylor Jr., Seabees Petty Officer 3rd Class Marvin Glenn Shields, and Petty Officer 2nd Class Lawrence W. Iman. As the mortar fire continued, sappers worked to breach the fence lines with demolition charges, VC infantry flooding through the breaches towards the defensive berms. Approximately 150 VC infantry then pressed to the north and west sides of the camp, attacking in groups of 6 to 10 men. After repeated failed assaults on the camp, the VC moved their heavy weapons forward, and at 1 AM, recoilless rifles and howitzers collapsed bunkers, destroyed heavy weapons, and suppressed the defenders. A quick reaction team of the 3rd Flight Platoon Bandits, 118th Aviation Company, was then ordered to Dong Xoai, and within minutes, 2 UH-1Bs departed Bien Hoa and began engaging the VC with rockets and machine guns by 1:30. The helicopters remained on station until they had expended all of their ammunition. At 2 AM, the VC breached the northwest and west walls of the CIDG compound using flamethrowers, and at a bugle signal the infantry attack intensified, overwhelmed the defenders, and penetrated the CIDG camp. Close quarters fighting continued until at 2:30 AM, a mortar barrage destroyed the bunker anchoring the compound's southwest corner. The Americans and a few Cambodians then withdrew to the district headquarters. Others escaped in small groups to the armoured car and artillery positions or retreated into Dong Xoai. The detachment's executive officer, 2nd Lieutenant Charles Q. Williams, organised the defence of the district headquarters, supervised treatment of the wounded, and adjusted airstrikes within a few yards of the headquarters building. Grenade and mortar fragments wounded Williams, and he was wounded again while rallying the South Vietnamese when VC began scaling the walls. When communications were re-established using an improvised battery-powered field radio, Williams received further wounds when he ran to the communications bunker. Wounded twice, Petty Officer Shields continued to defend the building, distribute ammunition, and carry injured soldiers to safety. With the sky clearing at dawn, US jets and helicopters began bombing and strafing the area, collapsing bunkers and fortifications, and killing many of the VC. The VC moved a 7.62mm machine gun into a school near the district headquarters at 9 AM and used it to fire through breaches in the building's walls. Williams and Shields sprinted 100 metres to a covered position near the gate, 150 metres from the school building, and with Shields acting as loader, Williams fired 4 3.5-inch rockets at the building. The first 3 missed, but the 4th eliminated the machine gun. Running back to the headquarters building, the 2 men were wounded by fire from another automatic weapon, Williams in the arm and Shields twice in the leg. Unable to carry Shields, Williams continued, while Shields pulled himself into another building and applied a tourniquet before passing out. 3 Americans later carried him back to the headquarters building. The 118th Aviation Company had been activated when the 2 Bandit helicopters returned to Bien Hoa around 4:30 AM. The company departed at 6, picked up elements of the ARVN 1st Battalion, 7th Regiment, and transported them to an open field near the Thuan Loi rubber plantation, 3 kilometres north of Dong Xoai. The first of the 14 helicopters approached the landing zone at 8 AM, but as they landed, VC infantry from the 1st Regiment opened fire on the helicopters and ARVN soldiers. The ARVN infantrymen were surrounded by 10:15 and at 10:30 radioed that they were being overrun. At noon, the 118th headquarters in Bien Hoa received a radio message from Dong Xoai, thought to have been sent by Special Forces Staff Sergeant Harold Crow. All those at the district headquarters were wounded, and the VC were attacking in human waves, with the next assault expected soon. The commanding officer, Major Harvey Stewart, and 5 pilots immediately headed to Dong Xoai in 3 Hueys. Accurate 57mm recoilless rifle fire had demolished 2 sides of the headquarters building by 1 PM, and with the VC massing for an attack, Williams ordered the 14 Americans and Vietnamese women and children to withdraw to the artillery position to the east, joining 20 South Vietnamese soldiers. As the VC advanced on the position, Williams reported his men were running out of ammunition and requested air support. With the 3 Hueys and their gunship escort closing on Dong Xoai, the area was declared a free strike area, and fixed-wing aircraft surrounded the artillery position with napalm, bombs and rockets. The 3 helicopters then landed, loaded the Americans and several Vietnamese, and by 2 o'clock had left the area. Shields was among the wounded loaded on the Hueys, but he had suffered a massive hemorrhage and went into shock, and died 30 minutes later. Major Stewart would later be awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. CB leader Peter Lynn and Senior Chief Petty Officer John McCulley had been left behind. The wounded men had become separated from the other Seabees during the withdrawal from the perimeter defences, and after escaping the camp, the men hid for the rest of the day and night. As the camp was being evacuated, the 118th landed the remainder of the ARVN 1st Battalion at the Thuan Loi rubber plantation airstrip, 6 kilometres north of Dong Xoai. Heavy fire met the helicopters, and as Bluetail 1 was lifting off, a mortar round struck the helicopter, which rolled over and exploded, killing the 4 crewmen and 2 US Army advisors. 80 men were on the ground when the landing was cancelled, and though F-100 Super Sabres and A-1E Sky Raiders dropped napalm on the advancing VC, contact with them was lost 20 minutes later at 1:15. At 4:55 PM, the 118th and other units of the 145th Combat Aviation Battalion began lifting the 52nd ARVN Ranger Battalion to a soccer field near Dong Xoai. The ARVN soldiers then advanced on the ruined district headquarters. By late afternoon, the VC artillery had run out of ammunition, and after hours of hard fighting, the Rangers pushed the VC out of the town. A VC counterattack after dark failed to retake it. One Huey from A Company, 82nd Aviation Battalion, had been downed by machine gun fire, killing the 4 crewmen. The next morning, June 11th, Peterlin and McCulley were airlifted to safety. Both men would later be awarded the Silver Star. On the morning of the 11th, the ARVN 7th Airborne Battalion landed to the north of Dong Xoai, and meeting only light opposition, they moved to the site of the first ambush of the 1st Battalion, finding 7 survivors and 55 bodies. Continuing to the Thuan Loi plantation, the airborne soldiers began searching the area in the afternoon. But using its superior numbers and firepower, and taking advantage of poor weather which limited US air support, the 1st VC Binh Gia regiment ambushed the 7th, breaking the battalion into isolated groups, and by the following afternoon, battalion strength had been reduced from 470 to 159. General Westmoreland concluded Communist strength in the Dong Xoai area included at least 5 infantry battalions and an artillery battalion, and that 4 more infantry battalions could reach the area within 24 hours. With only 4 depleted ARVN battalions at Dong Xoai, Westmoreland and the Corps Commander agreed that the single available battalion remaining in the strategic reserve might not be enough to drive the Communists out, and prevent them from establishing a base in the Thuan Loi area. Westmoreland warned Sharp that the commitment of the 173rd Airborne Brigade to the Dong Xoai area may be required within the next 12 hours. In preparation, he moved one of its battalions by helicopter from Vung Tau to the Phuc Vinh airfield, 20 kilometers from Dong Xoai. Secretary of Defense McNamara woke President Johnson at 2 a.m. Westmoreland, he reported, was considering using US ground forces in major combat for the first time. Johnson agreed that Westmoreland should make the final decision. However, the weather then cleared, and US air power, including 6 diverted rolling thunder missions, pulverized the Communist assembly areas, and, without a sufficient strategic reserve of their own, the Communists withdrew. 3 Green Berets, 2 Seabees, and 43 CIDG Montagnards and ARVN soldiers had been killed, and 14 of the surviving 15 Americans were wounded. 8 crewmen from the 118th Aviation Company and A Company, 82nd Aviation Battalion were killed. 5 US Army advisors and 400 ARVN soldiers also died in the fighting around Dong Xoai. Shields was joking up to the end, remarked Hospital Corpsman Petty Officer 2nd Class James Keenan. When he died, it was very quiet. He just went to sleep. The last thing he did was to thank everyone who helped him. Petty Officer 3rd Class Marvin Glenn Shields and 2nd Lieutenant Charles Q. Williams were both awarded the Medal of Honor.